Hi, welcome to our next video on systems of equations. We're still talking about the quadratic formula. Now, we know the quadratic formula is a formula used to find both solutions to a quadratic equation. We looked at this in the last video and we showed you how to use it to manually find two solutions to this quadratic equation. We had to find the values of A, B, and C. I'm going to go through that once again, then I'm going to show you a shortcut because your graphics calculator, if you're lucky enough to own one or use one, you are going to find this very, very simple. So let's go through this very quickly once more to remind you what the quadratic formula is all about. We're going to find the solutions to the quadratic equation x squared plus 6x subtract 18 is equal to 0. So we need the values of A, B, and C. A is the coefficient of x squared, the number being multiplied by the x squared. In this example, there is no number out the front, but you know it's 1. B is the number that's been multiplied by the x, the coefficient of x, which is 6. And C is the constant, the number all by itself, which is negative 18. So we'll substitute in negative B, which is negative 6, because B is positive 6, it becomes a negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4 times 1, times c, which is times by negative 18, and that's all divided by 2 times a, 2 times 1. Now, the bit inside the square root can be worked out to get 108, and now we can simplify this down to negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 108, all divided by 2. Now remember that plus and minus in the middle means there are two solutions. One is by doing a plus to get our first solution, I call it x1, and our second solution, I call it x2, we do it with a minus. And our two solutions come out to be 2.196 and negative 8.196. I've chosen to round both my answers to 4 significant figures. Okay, well, that's fantastic. Let's show you a much easier way that you're going to be overjoyed with, because if you are lucky enough to own a graphics calculator, we can solve this on the graphics calculator without having to do all these steps algebraically. So on the graphics calculator, when you go main menu, you've come up with a screen of all these different menus. I want you to use the cursors and race down to where you see, it may be different on your calculator, but where you see the equation menu. Go into that by pushing your blue execute button. There's different types of equations your calculator can solve. Simultaneous equations, polynomial and solver. We're going to use the polynomial, which are powers of 2, powers of 3, powers of 4, and so on. So let's go into F2, which is polynomial. Now this is a quadratic, which is an x squared, x to the power of 2. So we're going to use a degree of 2, which is F1. Now all we need to do is type in the values of A, B, and C. Now we worked out the value of A was 1, the value of B was 6, and the value of C was negative 18. So we just need to type in 1 for A, 6 for B, and when you type it in, you can push enter or this execute button to store it into memory, and negative 18. And then we're going to solve it. To solve it, we're going to use this function here, solve, which is the first function, which aligns with F1. When we push F1, you can see our two solutions pop up on our screen. Our first solution is 2.196, which we've rounded. And our second solution is negative 8.196, which we've rounded to. So the graphics calculator has the quadratic formula programmed into it to solve any quadratic. Fantastic, eh? All right, well, that's this video. Go away and practice. See if you can learn how to use your graphics calculator to solve quadratic equations. You're allowed to use the graphics calculator to solve quadratic equations in an assessment, unless the question specifically said use the quadratic formula to solve this problem. Right, well, that's us, so thanks for watching.